My name is Greg Hughes. I'm Assistant Principal from the De Ferris Academy in the UK. And I'm going to share with you today how students in my science lessons are able to take their iPad and take iTunes U and really take their science learning beyond the barriers of the traditional classroom. They're already using their iPad for things like paperless workflow and assessment, for things like accessing quality resources, which you've just seen some examples of that, and also for taking traditional results in science lessons. But now, cost-effective add-ons, things like Bluetooth data sensors, which you'll see later today, things like portable weather stations the size of your thumb, and also a new generation of not just data collectors, but also things like clip-on lenses, really allow students to take things much further. The ProScope, which you'll see upstairs, I think, with the iPad wall, uses the native iPad camera, but also its own light source to be able to allow the students to take fantastic images and videos of what they can see. So in this example, some of our students have captured the growth of silver nitrate crystals in real time using their iPad and the ProScope. Not only is it a great way to do studies of things like crystallography, metallic structures, but also the history of photography. Best of all, this is not done in the science lab. This is done on a bench with a Petri dish and the iPad just randomly around the school. We estimate they're growing about 1 millimetre per minute, so I've sped it up a little bit. It's not quite so boring. Best of all, now you can take the iPad out of the classroom and it becomes its own portable science laboratory. Students can use it as their science journal to document all the things that they're doing. They can use it to capture vivid images of the experience that are around them. They can use it as a data collector and also as a collaboration tool. All of this, things that would have been impossible to do just a few years ago. So here's some images of my students collecting their own photographs of bugs and insects around the school, in the school grounds. What they're then able to do is use the iPad to identify them, to use a key. What's nice is they haven't had to go on the internet to do this. They're able to produce their own images that are just as good, just as professional, but resonate far more with them. What they're then able to do is to personalise their learning by dropping these pictures into their own guidebooks and textbooks. Often this will then lead them, as you've heard this morning, to that level of critical thinking, to start to ask deeper questions, to really push their understanding, to conduct their own research, and it will ultimately lead to improved student outcomes. Okay, I absolutely agree that it's not about the grades, but one of the things that we are finding at De Ferris is that particularly in maths and science, those students that make effective use of their iPad, they are significantly outperforming other students, and we're seeing it at GCSE and A-level now. In these images, what my students are able to do is to look firsthand at cell structures in leaves and at some of the adaptations that prevent water loss in plants. You can see on the picture over here. They haven't had to spend half the lesson copying dull pictures out of science books, which has been a feature, unfortunately, of many science lessons over the years. In this video, rare encounter with a bug on the back of a leaf gives them the opportunity to measure the speed of movement of the bug, to look at how its limbs actually coordinate and move. Again, something you couldn't get from the traditional paper book. We estimate it moves about 1 millimetre per second, or about 3.6 metres an hour, about the size of your average flower bed. However, the iPad doesn't just have to stay in school or in the school grounds. This is Kingsbury Water Park near Birmingham. It's a large nature reserve, home to hundreds of species of native and migrant birds, and a fantastic place to do environmental studies and to do nature-based science. With the iPad, the students can now go on field trips and become collaborators and collectors of real data. In this case, my students were able to get real bird observations, then upload them to a national database, so that their readings, their observations, become part of genuine science, look at the environmental impact on those bird species. Really valuable work for them. What the students can then do is pop those results and observations straight into the Numbers app. So they're collating all their results and readings in one place, directly on the iPad. They can then share them with their fellow students. It's a very simple, quick way to do things like numeracy work, but also it really supports differentiation. Some of the students are able to perform quite complex calculations. They're able to do more error analysis and statistical work if that's what they need to be doing. Best of all, once they're done, they can then generate their graphs and charts directly out in the middle of the forest if needs be. They can look at their results for anomalies, for patterns, and while they're still in location, they can then repeat them. Something, again, that we couldn't traditionally do on a field trip. This not only engages the students, but it saves a lot of time when they go back to the classroom, because they've already done a lot of that work, and it's far more rewarding for them. With iTunes U, as you've heard, all of the activities they might want can be sequenced in a logical learning progression, from introducing a topic, building the understanding that they need, applying that learning to new contexts and situations, and then ultimately extending it further to ask those deeper questions. So this is part of the bird observation iTunes U course that we built for the students on the Kingsbury trip. Not only does it take full advantage of the iPad and the ecosystem, but for the case of our school and some of the others that you'll hear about, saved us thousands of pounds a year in not having to use any other learning platform. So I've shown you what the iPad and iTunes U can do in my school. Now it's time to see what it can do in yours. Thank you very much.